All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a huge and often totally hidden problem, the massive costs of running AI agents. But look, we're not just going to talk about the problem. We're going to give you a clear, actionable playbook to get those costs way down and turn your AI from a money pit into a real profit driver. And this quote right here, it nails the core problem. I call it the intelligence overbuy. It's this super common trap where we use our most powerful, most expensive AI models for really simple routine jobs. You're literally wasting a fortune. And we're going to fix that. Okay, so here's the big idea. To solve this overbuy problem, you gotta stop thinking of your AI as just one single tool. Instead, I want you to think of it like a whole fleet of specialized vehicles, right? Each one designed for a very specific job and a very specific price point. And this fleet, we can break it down into 4 distinct tiers. Each one has a specific role, from the simple gatekeeper all the way up to the elite big guns specialist. Getting this part right is the absolute first step to some massive savings. First up, Tier 0, the nano models. Just think of these as your receptionists. They're incredibly cheap, incredibly fast, and they're perfect for simple stuff like figuring out if an email is for sales or support and then just routing it to the right person. Simple. All right, next up, we've got the mini models. Now, these are the real workhorses of your system. They're like the junior associates who handle the bulk of your everyday work, pulling data from an invoice or giving you a quick summary of a customer call. Okay, now we're getting into the heavy hitters, the flagship models. These are your project managers. You bring them in for the complex, multi-step stuff where a mistake could be really costly, and you need that adaptability. Think strategic planning or critical code generation. And then, at the very, very top of the pyramid, you've got the reasoning specialists. These are your senior partners, the ultra-expensive experts you only call in for the most critical, high-stakes decisions where you absolutely, positively cannot afford to be wrong. But here's the catch. Even if you pick the perfect model from your fleet, your costs can still just explode. And that's because of 2 sneaky hidden taxes that are just silently draining your budget. So the first one is what we call the tool tax. You pay this every single time your agent even looks at its list of available tools. And the second is the output tax, which comes from agents that are just way too verbose and chatty, generating way more text than you actually need. And check this out, this is where it gets kind of crazy. The scale of this output tax is huge. As you can see on this chart for a flagship model, the tokens your agent generates can be 8 times more expensive than the tokens you send it. So an agent being chatty isn't just a style choice, it's a massive, massive cost driver. All right, enough theory, right? Let's make this super concrete. We're going to walk through a real-world case study of an expensive voice agent named Caleb, and we'll see exactly how we can use these ideas to just slash its operating costs. So meet Caleb. Caleb's this really sophisticated cold calling agent. Its whole job is to build rapport with people, handle their objections, and ultimately book appointments. And to do that well, it runs on a top-tier flagship model. But all that amazing performance? Yeah, it comes with a seriously steep price tag. In its current setup, Caleb costs almost $1,800 a month just to make 1,000 calls. That is a huge operational expense. So we looked at that number and said, okay, we can do way better. We put together this simple but really powerful 3-step optimization strategy designed to just hammer those costs down without hurting Caleb's performance on the phone. Step 1, we swapped the model, right? We went from the expensive Ferrari down to a much more efficient workhorse. Step 2, we totally re-architected the prompt. And step 3, we gated its tools, so they were only even visible to the agent when it absolutely needed them. And this right here, this is probably the most important trick in the whole playbook. See, originally, little dynamic things like the current time were way up at the top of the prompt. By moving all the static instructions to the top and pushing those changing variables all the way to the bottom, we unlock this incredibly powerful cost-saving feature called caching. So what does that little change actually do? Well, it lets the system cache that huge static part of the prompt. The result is kind of mind-blowing. That massive chunk of instructions, it is now 90% cheaper to process on every single turn of the conversation. That's a huge saving from just a simple structural change. So after swapping the model, optimizing the prompt for caching, and gating the tools, what's the bottom line? What did this actually do for Caleb's finances? Well, the agent's monthly operational cost didn't just go down, it absolutely cratered. It went from over $1,700 all the way down to just $540 for the exact same number of calls. I mean, just look at this chart. That is a savings of over $1,200 every single month. That's money that can now be plowed back into generating more leads, turning Caleb from a cool but costly experiment into a real engine for growth. Okay, so let's boil all this down into your checklist, the stuff you can actually go and do right now. First, always default to the smallest and cheapest model that can actually get the job done. Second, be ruthless about capping your agent's output. Third, build your prompts for caching. And finally, use state machines to gate your tools. And that really brings us to the big question you have to ask yourself. It's not about if you use AI anymore, it's about how you use it. Because implementing these strategies, well, that's what's going to decide if your AI becomes a true profit center for your business, or if it just stays a very clever and very expensive cost center.